All right, so today I'm going to talk about forgiveness and what forgiveness truly is and how to align yourself with forgiveness, because forgiveness is not something really that we do so much as something that we realize and something that we help all of our being align with. So essentially what forgiveness is a realization that it's basically a realization of oneness, that nothing could have ever happened differently than it did, that everything is you interacting with itself in different states of energy, and that because we are love and the universe is love, we attract, right? If we're vibrating in strong victim mentality, we attract energies that amplify that in our experience so that ultimately we can get sick of it and go beyond it. So everything that has ever happened to us has happened out of love and for our highest good. And it's really like cute and easy to say that. But if you are going through an experience, particularly like with a person that you feel has betrayed you and deceived you and lied to you, or whatever the case may be, and you're trying to forgive them, but you keep, maybe exploding at them, or you're reacting in a really strong way still, or when somebody asks you about it, you feel all this turmoil inside. I want to say that that's perfectly okay. And in order to be able to fully realize forgiveness, which is this realization of the perfection of the universe, and ultimately it's kind of like the end of separation. It's like true forgiveness is a realization of oneness, and there's a joy in realizing that, well, if I'm not the body and I'm not this location and this specific mind, I am the whole universe, and it's all interacting. It's all me interacting with myself. And from this individual perspective, everything that I have attracted has been to amplify vibrations that are vibrating, that I am emanating right now, to show me, to help me understand myself so that I can evolve and move beyond victim mentality. Like, that's amazing, right? But it's a little tricky because parts of you might truly feel, right? So if oneness is this, right? And like all of the characters are like just aspects of the whole, right? The trick is we want to get all the parts of ourselves, right? Maybe this part is in depression, melancholy. Maybe this part is in anger and rage, right? Maybe this part is pretending to be spiritual and avoiding her emotions or his emotions. And maybe this part, is trying to save the world, or like save the person, or has fantasies of saving others, because they don't want to acknowledge how truly helpless they feel. Okay, that's cool, right? We want to know. We want to bring these back into the realization of this, right? So in order to truly forgive, right? And no matter what has happened in your life, no matter if it's war, no matter if it's, in my family, there have been murders, and there has been other stuff I won't talk about right now, but stuff that has been pretty, the mind would call it extreme, right? The realization of oneness in regards to a specific event that has challenged you or that has stirred up your emotions, it would be helpful to contemplate that the mind, the best it can do at understanding reality is to use human language to contain the immensity of all that is and all the intelligence into an explanation, right? Collapse like infinite intelligence into a digestible data set, which has its value, right? Sometimes when we can understand something on some level, like part of us can let go of it, but what we realize, right, if we want to be free, that there's no need to understand anything, and it's difficult to ultimately understand things, right? What we really want is to be in harmony with nature, which is letting go and just feeling the celebration and the joy of life, that it keeps moving. You know, people come and go, seasons come and go. The body changes, we age, you know, like that's the joy of being. That's the bliss of being. Like it's always this eternal dance of formlessness and form. And so in order to, you know, in order to really live that, right? And it's, you know, the person that has hurt you the most could be like the gateway to the most like amazing gift in your life. In order to truly have that be your reality, you have to be really honest and real about how parts of you truly feel and perceive reality in the situation that you're trying to forgive. Because it's only if we acknowledge, like, well, yeah, I am still really blameful, and I feel a lot of hatred towards that person. And, you know, let's talk about hatred and intense blame for a second. You know, it's when we're children, a lot of times, you know, things happen to us. We suffer impacts when we are open and relaxed, right? So there's this fear of like, well, if I let go, if I let my mind let go of talking about this with myself, the way this person deceived me and hurt me, and, you know, how bad they are, how dangerous they are, unless I let go, I'm basically a sitting duck that's gonna get, right? That's what we're afraid of. That's what our mind is afraid of. And in a way, like, it's very important, right? It's very important to let that part, like, have that experience of setting the boundaries and keeping the boundaries, right? I'm not saying, even though we are boundaryless consciousness, I'm not saying that when you zoom back into your individual perspective, that you should go against reality, which is talking to you in the language of, okay, that doesn't feel compatible and life-giving and loving to me right now, so I will not engage with it. I talk a lot about that. I'm not talking about transcending our individual experience. I am bringing you into kind of a method of how to bring yourself truly into oneness, and how that actually looks and feels in your everyday life. So, but in order for you, you know, if we have this part that's really scared and blameful and can't let go of an explanation, or can't let go of talking about how dangerous it is, you know, you might want to let that part have that for a while. Let him or her have it, you know. Let them have it, because oftentimes when we're children, right, stuff is going on around us that we know is off, that we know is wrong, but we have no ability to move away from it. We have no ability to leave. We have no ability to do anything about it. So basically what happens is we put discernment in our shadow, because if we were to continuously acknowledge to ourselves that something is awful and we have no ability to get away from it, then we are stuck in some pretty intense conflict, right? That might very well destroy our health. So actually, as a genius strategy, we ignore how bad things are. We don't acknowledge to ourselves that this is actually not healthy, right? A lot of times we glamorize danger and we glamorize violence, because if mom and dad are violent or dangerous towards each other, or there's some kind of chaos or violence going on in your life, like, the only way I can cope with it is to make it beautiful. And sometimes, and make it beautiful, and that means I just say, okay, well, this is what God is. It's violence. It's right. And how does that show up in our adult life? Well, a lot of times with spiritual concepts, we can use an idea like what I'm talking about, everything is perfection, and we can try to impose that onto our life, when the reality is we might actually be in a situation where, now that we're an adult, we actually are being guided to go somewhere else. We are being called beyond this. We are being called beyond what's familiar to our childhood, but we don't let ourselves feel it because of maybe we have a hero complex, right? Maybe part of us feels that the only way that we'll ever get out of a situation that feels volatile, chaotic, and horrible to us is if we fix everyone around us. So being the hero really isn't about I mean, it can be about like a superiority complex and trying to save the world, but what it's really about is trying to save yourself, because you feel helpless, because you feel like you have no control over your energy, because you have no because everything is penetrating you, right? Because you're at the mercy of your environment. That's the essence of the victim. I am at the mercy of my environment, and that can look like overwhelm, that can look like spinning, that can look like being the hero, the martyr, the fixer, the mother. Okay, that can look like being, tyrannical and controlling and overly masculine. That can look like a lot of things, right? Anything that we identify with is a strategy. Any kind of character or archetype that we use to manipulate reality or help us escape from our feelings, our feeling of helplessness that would ultimately set us free, that's the separate self. But why would it set us free to let ourselves acknowledge these things? Because the way that reality works, the way that evolution works, is that once I get sick of something, how many times, I'll raise my hand, how many times have you tried to save an addict and nothing you do helps? The whole time you had this other option, just to leave them alone and leave them, let them have their life and let them figure it out. I'm not saying don't help people and don't love people. I'm saying there comes a time when there's a realization that it's not being received. So if it's not being received, the only reason that you're still doing it is because you're identified with, right? You believe the only way you'll ever feel safe is if you change this energy into different energy, right? Because you believe that you have no option, like the child. The child believes it can't leave. The child believes it can't do anything about it. The child believes that God equals whatever chaos is in my environment. So there's almost like a glamorization of it, and so we're entangled with it. We're like a deer in headlights. This is just life, right? But the truth is that no, life is speaking to us as impulses. Like life is speaking to us as our natural inclinations, our biorhythms, our natural desires, and that will move us away effortlessly from things that really truly are not compatible with us anymore. And so how do we get to forgiveness, but like for real, where we really rest in, wow, nothing actually ever happened, because you could be resting in oneness, right? This happened to me. I had a spontaneous awakening and I was in oneness, and then this pretty freaking huge bomb went off in my life, and it triggered all these guys that didn't yet know this, right? They're being exposed. They're being exposed by the event because they were already in me. And so really from where I am now, again, I'm like, wow, like I'm so happy that this was exposed to me, right? I'm so happy that this was exposed to me because I am life, and I want to feel the bliss of myself. I want to be in joy and be in presence and be of service, and I care about, how I show up in this world. And these things were vibrating in me, right? Blame and hatred, and the belief that the only way I can get away from something is if the only propeller to get me out of a bad situation is if I desperately hate it, if I blame it and hate it. The beliefs that I am not my source, right? And it's like the implications for me financially, like understanding that, wow, now that I know what I am, right, on a deeper level, it's like my sense of wholeness is just like, forgiveness is natural because I feel whole, because I don't need that person to feel whole. I don't need to have children to feel whole. I don't need to live in that neighborhood to feel whole. I don't need to be anything to feel whole. I am whole because I am life, and the way that I have unfolded throughout all of eternity as this perspective and as every perspective is absolute perfection. But really the only way to be able to truly rest here is if you acknowledge, is if you let these parts speak. And if you're really stuck in one of these, and if you don't truly deeply understand what's going on with a part of you. It might be really sticky and deep. It might be stuff that you learned when you were in the womb. Put yourself back in the womb, regress yourself. It's pretty simple, actually. You can close your eyes and put yourself back in the womb and see how it feels in there. How does it feel in there? And ask your mind, what was my mom thinking and feeling at that time? What was my dad thinking and feeling at that time? What may I have taken on? What beliefs about myself? But when you truly don't, when you can't move through a pattern that feels really sticky, the universe will come in, and give you a video or a book or an explanation or a teacher or a teaching. Like, if you really want to be free, if you're really truly sick of victim mentality and living, primarily in your shadow, then life will give you something that will explain it to you for sure. So that's forgiveness, right? Forgiveness can only be realized, and it can only be something that you rest in if you honor where, right? The goal is to bring the parts of your mind that are vibrating in various states of energy into this realization. But first, they have to come into your awareness. There's no avoiding it. They have to come into your awareness, let them speak, understand them, understand what they believe about themselves. You might see the age that it happened. You might want to do a visual, like a ritual, like go back to that memory, go to them, wake them up out of the memory, say, hey, I'm you from the future. Wake them up out of that memory, unfreeze them, channel love into their hearts, right? It doesn't have to be that complicated, but intuitively you will know. Be aware of the state of energy that is blocking you from the realization of oneness, which is what real forgiveness really is in relationship to the things that have hurt us in our human life. Acknowledge them. Acknowledge the feeling, find the belief, and realize that under the belief about myself that I cannot feel whole without that relationship is the belief that I am separate from life. And when I know that, when this part knows this, it's like this is what happens. It's like, oh, I am whole. I am all the aspects, and I am whole at the same time. And so is that person. And so is everything that has ever happened in my life has been a perfect expression of my unfolding and my enlightenment. So that's forgiveness. I hope you have a beautiful day.